Morning to everybody and welcome to Timeout. My name is Jack Vint. I trust where you are finding yourself this morning is that you've also been able to enjoy a little bit of time out with a cup of coffee or tea, or that you're speaking to a friend, or perhaps this morning you took the dog out for a walk. Great. I hope it's helped you to unwind a little bit, because we all need to. I don't know about you, but I'm finding it pretty stressful where I am during this lockdown, and not being able to get out and do some of the things I want to do. And so I don't know how you feel, but even as you watch this broadcast, please feel free to comment on what I'm going to say, whether you agree or disagree. That is your right. I would love to hear from you. Now, while I was just thinking about this morning, I realized that, there are two strains of thought currently in our country. There are those that are living in reality on the ground, and then there seems to be those that are living in a parallel universe in idealism. And as you know, the two aren't really compatible. And I've always maintained and said that I believe that our two greatest assets are our relationships and our health. And I've also said that unfortunately, we never appreciate these two greatest assets, our health and our relationships, sometimes until they're gone. And I would like to, if I may this morning, add a third asset that is important in our lives, which is our freedom. And I'm also hoping that it doesn't happen that way, that we only appreciate our freedom once it's gone. Now, there is a saying that says that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We live in a democracy, and let me just say that I believe in the rule of law. I believe in praying for our leaders and honoring our president, but I also believe that we need to hold people accountable. If we don't, we will lose our democracy. So this is what I'm saying, that we have elected certain people, officials, to represent us and to serve us in our country. So they are there as servants to us, the people. And we must never turn that around and think that we are there to serve those we've elected. That's not how democracy works. It works the other way around. Now, I was thinking about that, not many years ago, in our country, we have a infamous history of oppressing people. And, many of our leaders, since our democracy has come forward and said, rightly so, we must never ever go back to that system. But I find myself thinking about the parallels. In those days, in those oppressive days, we had the majority part of our population couldn't move around freely because they needed a passbook, and they were apprehended if they didn't, and they didn't have permission. And I was thinking about the permits that we're issuing now for people's movement, and how that's become an issue. And then we also used to have a curfew during those times in our infamous history, where at a certain time, very similar time, you weren't allowed on the streets, especially if you belonged to a certain of the population group, or you could have been imprisoned. Scary as that may be, there is a parallel to where we find ourselves now. So this is what I want to say. A famous statesman, which is politically correct to say Nelson Mandela, one of our leaders, who really had the right to speak about this, who lost his freedom, and he said something very important, and I want to read it to you. When a man is denied, he says, the right to live the life he believes in, he has no other choice but to become an outlaw. Wow, that's what Nelson Mandela said. Now, during these regulations, if you are found to have violated any of them, they can basically give you a fine, and you can end up that if you don't pay it can go against your record. So you can have a record for some of the laws that people are making. And to me, that is absolutely absurd. So I want to say this, that communism always believed that if we could influence the way a child thinks through education, Think about this. And we can somehow affect the way people believe by suppressing the church and opposing the church. The rest of the population will fall into line. So here are the two things that we need to stand up for. Number one, our children, the right for the education. And number two, for our churches that have a right to believe in our faith and the right to believe in our God. Now, you may say, Jack, what's the significance of all this? You see, if we train our politicians or leaders to become control freaks by allowing them to do certain things they're not supposed to do, and that means that they become addicted to that opium of rule will become something that will dominate our democracy. And that will be the end of our democracy. And then we're going to be in big trouble. So I ask the question, in years to come, if this ever happens that we lose our freedom, will you and I stand up and say, we should have fought harder for our freedom than we did? Thank you for watching. Remember to comment if you want to. My name is Jack Vint, and this has been Timeout, and I'll catch you next week.